Where do the Atlanta Hawks go from here? You see, the NBA draft lottery has just taken place on Mother's Day at like 12 in the afternoon because apparently the NBA just doesn't care about this upcoming draft class. There isn't any Zion Williamson or Victor Wembanyama to really hype it up, and yet the lottery was still able to catch major headlines because with only 3% odds, the Atlanta Hawks were able to jump into first and now hold the #1 overall pick in this year's draft. RIP to the Detroit Pistons, okay? But I was just watching this Atlanta Hawks team get bodied in the play-in tournament like 2 weeks ago. So now their future is looking completely different. What they do with Trey Young and Dejounte Murray and that mess they have in Atlanta completely flips. Whatever Quinn Snyder or the front office had in mind, yeah, throw that out the window because now they're gonna bring in Alex Sarr, who is this 7'1", 216-pound athletic freak out of France. Does that sound familiar? Going to be potentially drafted with the #1 overall pick? Yeah, that should ring a bell because there are a few baseline similarities with Victor Wembanyama. Now, he isn't nearly as talented, as skillful, or as NBA ready as Wembanyama was heading into this draft, or else Atlanta Hawks fans would be going absolutely bonkers after winning this lottery. And of course, many are happy or excited about it, but they don't have that same hype as, last year's draft would have brought them, right? But that doesn't take away from Alex Sarr. He's a difference maker on the defensive end of the basketball, with a few draft analysts really comparing him and his play style to Jaren Jackson Jr. and Evan Mobley. Those are two really good centers in this league who excel on the defensive end. So they're saying that's what you should expect from Alex Sarr. And honestly, if I got that for my #1 overall pick, I would be pretty fucking satisfied, you know what I'm saying? But before we continue on with talking about Alex Sarr, I just want to remind you guys to slow down, like the video, and subscribe to the channel. Every subscription goes a long way. We're trying to hit 3,000. I feel like we can do it in the upcoming months, so just, subscribe for me. Alright, now let's get back to glazing Alex Sarr. You see, this guy has been playing all around the world. He may only be 19 years old, but he's been here, been there, everywhere at this point. Back in 2019, at only like 14, 15 years old, he was playing for Real Madrid's basketball team for about 2 seasons, and he did pretty well there before going to Overtime Elite for about 2 years, starting in 2021. And he did his thing in Overtime Elite, really gained some popularity. This is where his draft stock began to soar, especially with this weak-ass draft class. Obviously, someone like Alex Sarr is going to shine, and the real test came in 2023-24 when he went to go to Australia to play in their basketball league or whatever. And he played, I want to say, 27 games in that little Australian league, the National Basketball League or whatever. And in those 27 games, he averaged about 17 minutes, had about 9.4 points. His shooting percentage was 52% from the field. Didn't really take that many threes, so we won't even talk about that. His blocks were about 1.5. That's really what you want to be looking at here, especially with a guy like Alex Sarr. Those are good numbers. His rebounds, 4.3, most of them coming on the defensive end, obviously. And his assists, yeah, those assist numbers were pretty irrelevant. Didn't exist too much for Alex Sarr, but that's not his job, right? His job is to play defense, grab the boards, and maybe even put the ball in the basket every once in a while. That is why you're drafting Alex Sarr to your team. And so with who they're going to draft now done and out of the way, let's get to the Atlanta Hawks roster and the little silly mess they've got going on over there. First, Trey Young. Trey Young is 25 years old, superstar of this team, and is signed through 2027, which by then he should be making $49 million. Now, the thing with Trey Young is that he was drafted to this team a while back, was supposed to be the centerpiece, and he's kind of lived up to it, right? He was traded for Luka Doncic on draft day, so a couple regrets there from the Atlanta Hawks front office, but Trey Young has been their guy since day one. The question is, do they trade Trey Young away, rebuild around Alex Sarr, or continue to try and be competitive with this mediocre-ass squad, but now they've got Alex Sarr and Trey Young as a duo, right? Because here's the thing. The potential trade rumors were to maybe the San Antonio Spurs. He could, throw some lobs to Victor Wembanyama. Victor Wembanyama can create for himself. That would be an exciting duo. But the Atlanta Hawks have their own French big man who's an athletic freak coming to their team. So that potential pairing we could just see in Atlanta now that Alex Sarr is going to be drafted there. So you've got to take that into consideration. Anything is possible with a Trey Young led team. We've seen these guys reach the Eastern Conference Finals only a few years ago, so who's to say they can't do it again? Alright, and then you've got Dejounte Murray. Now another thing is, do we just trade Dejounte Murray instead of Trey Young, or do we keep him? Because Dejounte Murray and Trey Young has been this experiment that hasn't worked out for what, 2 seasons at this point? Yeah, if Trey Young stays, Dejounte Murray's out the door, vice versa. Or hell, maybe they both go. But Dejounte Murray also signed a huge ass contract and is under contract with this team until 2028, where he's going to be making around $31 million. Of course, that last year is a player option, but let's be real, he ain't staying on Atlanta that entire contract. He's probably out the door. They'll probably trade him, I don't know, they'll try and stay competitive, right? If they keep Trey Young, they're going to try to be competitive. I doubt they'll trade for draft picks. Who will they get for Dejounte Murray? Absolute fucking question mark. No idea. It's too early on to tell, but he is 27 years old, defensive mastermind, just like Alex Sarr. Quinn Snyder was brought onto this team to have more defense, but defense isn't really possible when you've got Trey Young as your superstar, because he is just a big ass liability on that end of the fucking court. So, you know, give up on that whole defensive thing and really focus in on your offense. Try that Phoenix Suns method in the early 2000s. That didn't work out for them, but hell, they got far with it. Free agent wise, the Atlanta Hawks are only losing Saddiq Bey and old ass Wesley Matthews. Oh no, Wesley Matthews isn't on the team anymore. He's 37 years old, barely got any minutes. Goodbye, Wesley. The rest of the roster, Clint Capella, 1 year left on his deal, $22 fucking million. Why pay that man that much? I don't know. But now that Alex Sarr is here, we don't really need you as a center. So bye-bye, you too, you know? And then Onyeka Okongwu, what's his place on this team? Again, another guy who's supposed to be really good at defense. Guess what Onyeka Okongwu has failed to do in his time in Atlanta? Play some fucking defense, okay? So we can name any player on this roster. All of them have failed to live up to their potential. They've got a bunch of talented dudes, okay? The reason they're mid is because a lot of their young prospects just haven't been able to shine. DeAndre Hunter, the list goes on and on. However, the one guy you can't say this about, Jalen Johnson. Shout out JJ, has had massive improvement in his 3 years in the NBA. He looks very good going forward. Now you've got Trey Young, Jalen Johnson, Alex Sarr, 3 quality starters. Maybe you even pick up a 4th with the Dejounte Murray trade. And now we are looking at the 6th seed in a terrible Eastern Conference. Good job, Atlanta Hawks front office. That is where I think they are going to go. How do they escape mediocrity? They pray Alex Sarr is that Jaren Jackson, Evan Mobley that analysts have him being, okay? And that's about it for this video. Really just wanted to cover the Hawks because that lottery, 3% odds, mind blown when it happened. But I'm excited, right? I am a big fan of Trey Young. I do want to see him succeed. Of course, if he came to my Lakers, would love it. But also, him in Atlanta could work. It's a vibe. He's got aura. We'll see where it goes. Shout out to the fucking Alex Sarr, okay? Hopefully he's a big prospect. You come back to this video and you subscribe if he is a big deal in 2 to 3 years. Let's end the video. Can we end the video?